This is the Team Objection podcast for September 10th, 2020, episode 452. The expected crew is here. Dave is holding up a thing that's not good radio, and this is the start that we're off to.
Dave is holding up The Witcher 3, which tells me that the episode that we did last week was for fuck all because he got the game we didn't even talk about.
So I'll tell the quick story of how that happened. I got an email.
It on sale.
Yeah, pretty much. It was like super half off sale, and it was like, well, Shaun says he really likes this game. I don't have to play it right now. I can try, Skyrim first. But I mean, hell, it's half off. I might as well get it.
No,
so
you should play it now. You have it. You should play it.
I wasn't trying to, brush you guys off. It was merely like, well, I know I want to play this eventually, so why pay $40 later when I can pay $20 now?
Well, I'm allowed to give you shit on it because you didn't listen to me, but you went with one of my favorite games of all time, so I'm not going to be, mad about it.
I mean, I did confirm with you prior to purchase. I'm like, hey, Shaun, this is the right game, right? This isn't, the wrong, similarly named title that I screwed up somehow.
Yeah, but what was I going to do? Be mad at you and be like, no, that's not it. You need to... It's on Steam. It's called Witcher 1.
Well, if it was, then I would know.
No, so I've compiled some tips for you, Dave.
Oh,
I spent all weekend thinking about it.
He's going to shit on me for not playing the game he recommends and then give me a bunch of tips for this game that he wants me to play.
That's correct.
Because in a future episode, we would have done recommendations part 2, Witcher would have been on it. Now we can't do that. So not only are you you're ruining prior segments that we've done, you're also ruining future segments that we have yet to do.
Blame GameStop. And I will blame GameStop too, because this is supposedly a new game and it didn't come shrink wrapped. There were stickers all over it. It pissed me off.
That's what you get for going to GameStop, first of all. I didn't even know they still existed. I'm kidding, of course. But there's a little tiny part of me that actually hasn't been in a GameStop to buy anything in about 2 years now.
GameStop is dying.
It is, but I was going to buy this digitally, but it was $60 to buy digitally and $20 through GameStop. And I'm like, I mean...
That's why I don't want GameStop to die. It's also why I don't want to buy an Xbox Series S. But that's another story.
Yeah, I get that.
So, Dave, you had asked me at one point, do I need to play 1 and 2?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't think so. I would like to go back and revise my answer of absolutely not. So,
okay, good.
1 and 2, your character has amnesia, which is, I know it's rote, but it's kind of what they had to do because he actually dies at the end of the books, which these are a continuation of. They're not based on the books. They are actually sequels of the books.
Same universe type of thing.
Same, okay. It's the same story. It's the same characters.
Got it.
But you're like, how do you make a sequel to a book where the main character dies at the end? Well, here's how. You just bring him back, you give him amnesia. So the first 2 games, because of that, they're very self-contained. So there is a story. He's out there doing stuff, but because he has amnesia, there's not a lot of connectors to the books.
Mm.
There's a few in some of the characters, but really the stories are very isolated. It's not until 3 that you really get into the idea that the games are a true sequel to the books. He's after Yennefer and Ciri again, Cirilla, who my dog is named after. And that's kind of all you need to know. There's events that happened. He raised Ciri to be a Witcher like him, and they were separated, and now he's trying to find him again.
Classic fetch quest. Got it.
And other forces are also trying to find Ciri because she is super powerful. That's it.
All right.
That's all the background you really need.
Good tips.
I'm not done yet. I'm just saying that's the background. So you're a Witcher. You are a monster hunter, basically.
Okay.
You took a bunch of potions that make you more powerful, fast reaction time, all of that than a regular human. But people see you as a freak, especially now that the monster population has declined. So where once you were necessary, now people hate you.
Good. Got off to a good start. So everyone hates me as I start the game.
Pretty much, yeah. You've seen Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah, the majority of it, yes. I know how it ends. I know a lot of it.
It's very analogous to the Night's Watch, where at one point they were kind of renowned, and now they're just a bunch of criminals watching a wall that no one's interested in anymore.
That if you leave, you get murdered for leaving, right?
Pretty much, yeah. The Witchers are still important, but because the monsters aren't around as much, no one cares.
Mm-hmm.
So,
got it.
So you're after Ciri and Yennefer. You'll get enough background from the beginning of the game to where I don't really need to go into much more than that.
So, how much of this do I need to relay to my wife? Because part of the other reason I purchased this too was because she wanted to watch it with me.
Pretty much just what I told you.
Okay.
Honestly,
good.
even the thing with Ciri and Yennefer, I think the game starts with like a prologue flashback.
Good.
So, like, there's going to be details that you're not going to know that if you read the books, it fills in, but like you're going to be just fine. I read the books only after I played the games.
Good. All right. So as long as I'm not lost, that's the key.
Kotaku has a pretty nice primer for like, here's kind of a snapshot of the lore. It takes like 10 minutes to read, and it's actually really good and an entertaining write-up. So you could look into that, but you're not going to need a ton of context.
All right.
Play on easy.
Planned on it.
If you really love it and you want to get into upping the difficulty, it requires you to rely on a bunch of potions and decotions, I think they call them, and your stun bombs and all of that. You really have to dig into your repertoire, which I've heard can be fun, but I just don't hamper me with combat. I just want to get to the story. I want to be I'm supposed to be a badass. Let me be a badass.
I guess that was the question: is how easy are those to come across? Because as Chris has mentioned on this show before, I know I'm like him in the sense I'm kind of a hoarder of items, where it's like, well, I have 20 potions. I don't want to use one because that's an even number. Well, okay, I'll go buy 50 more so I'm safe.
No, it's gonna be, if you play on easy and you stay within your recommended level on quests, you're gonna be fine. It's
good.
not going to be too easy, but you're not going to be. It's also. I mean, it's going to be easy. You're never really going to get your ass kicked.
Mm-hmm.
And what's nice is if you find yourself in a fun situation that's above your level, you'll probably be okay because you're on easy.
It's on easy, yeah.
Play Gwent.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty early on, you're going to be exposed to your first Gwent.
It's funny how it comes with this card in it, like this Gwent card that says like play Gwent online on www.playgwent.com.
Yeah.
So apparently you can play online.
Well, so okay.
Outside of the game.
No, well, here's a clarification there. Gwent in the game is very different than the Gwent game. The Gwent online game that's talking about is like a full-on TCG. It's super well balanced. It's extremely different from the Gwent you're going to be playing in the game.
Okay.
The Gwent in the game is kind of a broken mess, but it's still really fun.
All right.
And there's a lot of fun quests that you're like in a Gwent tournament, and there's political intrigue, but in order to see it, you have to keep progressing through the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun. You beat people and you collect cards from them. So it's like I've talked about this before. It's like Yu-Gi-Oh in a video game. Like I've never it's like the Yu-Gi-Oh TV show, I should say. And I played a Yu-Gi-Oh video game. This is more like the Yu-Gi-Oh TV show than the Yu-Gi-Oh actual video game.
It makes you. It's kind of like how the Orville is more Star Trek than Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah,
I know that's a reference lost on you, but it's fine.
Well, it's just amazing, like how fun it is, and everyone in the world plays this stupid game, and it's hilarious and almost like out of place, but it's still very good. Let's see. Do the hunts, do the side quests, but don't do too much of the treasure hunting unless you're like absolutely obsessed with the game. You don't really need it. It's time consuming. You're gonna have enough to do without it. And there's kind of no end to it. So just find equipment that you like, and that'll be fine. Okay. My last thing. There's 2 DLC that you bought with that complete edition.
Mm-hmm.
Heart of Stone and
Blood and Wine,
right? Heart of Stone, you should wait on both of them. Heart of Stone you can play before the ending though, and that's fine for where it fits into the story. Actually, I think it fits in a little bit better before the ending. Blood and Wine, absolutely, you have to wait until you beat in the game. It's designed as like an epilogue of sorts, and to play it before you beat the game would make it feel really silly.
That's a tough thing for me to do. I've talked about this before, how ending a game, like once I beat the final part of the game, the final boss per se, it's really hard to finish the game. But I recently got 120 shrines in Breath of the Wild, so I think I'm breaking that mold of myself.
I know, and I honestly am the same as you. I really enjoyed the Outer Worlds, and they're releasing DLC now, and I'm like, I don't care anymore. I'm done with the game.
It's done.
This though, it's like it was built. It's almost like Royal, where like they built in the story, not like as a little side stupid thing, but it's like very connected to the main plot. This is the same way. And it tries to build it up for a send off. I won't spoil anything, whether he dies or gets to go retire. I won't say, but like it's a fitting conclusion to the story. It was built with that in mind. So it definitely do it. It's some of the best content in the whole game.
The fact that I can just flow right into it is probably going to help a lot.
Yeah, and
it's already on the
absolutely.
disc. Yeah.
So yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to playing it. So
okay, start it right away.
I'm probably going to try to play it a little bit later tonight. However, I have one other story on top of this. It was on sale. In addition, this past Labor Day weekend was another sale of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. The trilogy was on sale on Nintendo Switch Online, and so I am playing that with my wife. She's the one controlling everything, not me. So it's kind of more fun to watch.
You would almost have to do it that way, yeah.
So it's fun having her do that, and it is now a running joke in our house where we just do.
Yeah.
Like hit the papers.
I think the table slam is one of the best motions to replicate yourself because you're not often holding papers, especially nowadays. Everything's so digital. You can't really point at people accusatorily. You can't just walk down the street and just be like, you. I mean, you can get away with that as an inside joke in the house, but you can't really pull that off. But the table slam,
oh, yeah.
You can do that. You can do that in a lot of situations. You can do it when you're not serious. You can do it when you're very serious.
It was just earlier tonight. It was, let's make dinner.
Yeah, that's great. That's phenomenal. I'm glad to see it's kind of, working its way through the household.
Oh, because it happened quickly.
The other mannerisms, I mean, everybody else in the series is a little too over the top, particularly the enemy prosecutors.
Mm-hmm.
Their stuff, while hilarious and you're always happy to see it show up, is not something you can really do. I don't want to spoil too much for future games that you haven't gotten to yet, but there's a couple in particular you're not going to get away with. A couple of them would be potentially seen as assault. It's a little bit unclear as to why it's allowed in the courtroom in the first place, but we won't talk about that.
That justice system is just...
Yeah. It's fine. I think it's heavily implied that the judge is just like way too much of a pushover, and that's why everything's allowed to happen under his watch.
It's been a long time since I played the first one, so we just played the first trial the other night, and it was really funny just remembering that the name of the first guy who actually committed the crime, his last name was Saw It, which is like, oh, you saw it, did you?
Yeah. They're not trying to make that first case difficult.
No. Or when it smells, it's likely the butts. I'm like, oh god, the guy's name is Harry Butts.
Yeah,
like, why?
At least he won't become a regular character.
God, I didn't want him to.
It's actually like I'm fine with the over-the-top nature of everything except the names bother me. That's it. I don't like the names. Yeah,
I think the localization team was like, how can we make this cheesy?
Yeah, and they're not going to consistently be that bad. I mean, you played through the first game, so by the end, there's still the occasional like pun name, but it's not just I'm the murderer. However, that's going to continue throughout the series as well. It is a little bit much at times. You're like, okay, yeah, I get it. He does this thing, and that's his name. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah. It'll still be fun, and it's something that we can play together. She can play through, which is nice. So it'll work out good. So
is she going to go through the whole thing though?
The plan is to play the first game at least. I mean, we did the first trial, and she seemed interested in doing the next trial. So yeah.
So you're not setting out saying we're going to finish the entire 6 games together. You're just going to take it one game at a time.
Well, I only have 3 games right now, and yes, we're going to take it one game at a time.
Okay. I like
so
that.
if she doesn't want to continue, I will play the second and third games. So
this will be a good refresher for you. It's a smart decision because now you can kind of catch up on anything you might have forgotten.
Yep.
Jump into 2. If she's on board, great. It means you guys both have something you're enjoying. If not, well, you at least got her through it, and she had to have at least enjoyed it to some extent to even play the whole game, and then you can just take on 2.
Well, and the fact that we immediately caught on with Table Slam, and she was totally cool with it. It's like, yeah, that's going to be a running thing. I'm like, good, you're on board. Great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Dave, you bought 2 games, but there's another game you have to pre-order.
I actually bought 3 games.
Wait a minute.
Fucking, you're ruining my... Fine.
Roll
what
the
was
tape
the
back.
third game?
It's easy. It's just for the kids. It's Just Dance. It's just for the kids to play. That's all. I'm not even going to talk about it.
That's fine. I've never been into those games. There's definitely a core fandom that is, and as somebody who's poured hundreds of hours into Rock Band, I can just be like, yeah, okay, respect. If you love it, cool. They're definitely a good series of games, but not for me.
Is it good for cardio?
It is okay for cardio in the sense of like you move your arms, and all you have to do is move your arm because you have the Switch controller in one hand. But if you want to get really into it, it could be very good for cardio.
Okay.
I think it's sort of like a DDR, a Rock Band, where if you really get into the expert levels, the stuff that's involved there would then be quite a good workout. But, you know, if you're playing a song on 4 steps on DDR, you're like, and right, and left, and down, and up. And you're like, okay, I mean, it's better than sitting in a chair, but not much.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, that's our video game corner. We'll have to check in with Dave to see how his progress is going. The Witcher, of course, is a long game, and Phoenix Wright, while individually not too bad, a trilogy and then 3 more after that could add up quite a bit.
Wait, you can't transition out of video game corner yet.
Oh, we're doing that one second? All right.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. I had such a good segue. It got ruined by Dave, but it was perfect.
That's fine.
All right, try again.
Do it anyways. How do I set this up? Okay.
You bought 3 games already, but there's another you're supposed to pre-order.
Okay, what do I have to pre-order?
Super Mario 3D All-Stars.
That's also 3 games.
Well, so okay, wasn't that games that have already been out?
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't need that. I want to download more likely Hyrule Warriors, the Calamity Edition.
We can talk about that. I think that game is okay. Have you played the first one?
Hyrule Warriors?
Yeah.
No.
So it's not really a Zelda game. It's a Dynasty Warriors game with some Zelda trappings in it.
Damn.
And I played the original and it was fun. I played with Chris. It was fun. It was fine. But it was not Zelda. So if you're looking for Zelda, this isn't really for you. But if you're fine with the Dynasty Warriors combat, then go for it.
So I'm torn because I actually like the Breath of the Wild lore, the idea of the ancient beast, you know, the kind of the civilization 10,000 years in the future, that Zelda. And since there is a direct sequel coming out, it'd be kind of interesting to play more of that lore, which is kind of, I was intrigued by it.
Boy, were there a lot of people butthurt that they didn't have any new Breath of the Wild 2 news. But you know what? When you become accustomed to Twitter over time, you get used to seeing that everybody's disappointed by every Nintendo Direct if it doesn't have exactly what they want in it, and people are a bunch of whiny assholes. So
yeah,
that's okay. They can be
I'll
mad.
Deal. Yeah, I'll deal.
I mean, so the Mario games, Dave, it's Mario 64, Mario Sunshine, which is hard to play these days, and then Mario Galaxy.
Yep, all of which I've played. Mario. All of which I don't think I've beaten. No, I beat Mario 64. Mario Sunshine and Mario Galaxy I've played but not beaten through.
So this will be your opportunity because now you get to play 3 of the best games ever made, ever, on
Sunshine,
the Switch,
really?
On handheld.
Sunshine.
Oh yeah, Sunshine's still great.
I wasn't a huge fan when the parts I played.
That's because you're a bad person.
It definitely has its detractors, but it is still a good game.
Okay. All right.
I mean, being one of the better Mario games ever still does mean it's one of the best games ever made.
Yeah, I mean, it can be low on kind of like the Zeldas. It can be very low on the rankings of Zelda lists, but still high above many, many others.
Pretty much, yeah.
And you can't help but think, like, if Sunshine had come out at a different time, would it have been received differently? It was just not what people wanted at that moment. And you've seen different things, both, you know, TV, movies, games, whatever, that have come out at the wrong time or just been not what people expected. There was a similar problem with Wind Waker when it first came out, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people wanted that hyper-realistic Twilight Princess looking thing. There was a game demo that was supposed to be that, and then Wind Waker came out, and people went, bleh. Sunshine, I felt like, kind of had the same thing, too. It had a lot of pressure to live up to as the Mario 64 successor. Some of it might have been unfair.
And it was only, like, the second 3D Mario game ever, and so people really wanting more of that and immediately getting the FLUDD system.
Yeah.
Nowadays, now that we've had Galaxy, Galaxy 2, Odyssey, all these other games, people might be more okay with a kind of offbeat 3D Mario.
Yeah.
Fair, yeah.
I think so, too. I think it's an unfortunate byproduct of its time. Now, I'm not saying that it would be, like, beloved and, like, the most popular Mario game, but I think it would have been better received now.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mario 64, though, I'm like, it's almost making me reassess my best games of all time list because it's like the number 1 game I want to go back and play on the Nintendo 64. And that includes Ocarina of Time, even though, like, I know Ocarina of Time is a better game. The one that I'm most excited to go back and play again is Mario 64.
Did they upscale it?
Yeah.
Or are they upscaling it? Okay.
A bit, yeah.
It looks nice. It's still a
Okay.
64 game, so I'm not going to say, you're going to look at that and look at Galaxy and be like, But it definitely looks a lot better than just what's on the Virtual Console with its original polygonal. I don't want to say mess. It looks okay still, but it's dated.
I'm kind of okay with. I'm so weird. And I know this is nostalgia talking, but like, I would almost prefer it to retain its look than like be a total remaster, have Odyssey graphics but in the 64 package. I love 64. I don't know.
I'd be fine if it was the graphics, if it cleaned up a little bit of the control, some of the stickiness of the controls. Because after I was playing Mario 64 on my old Wii for a while, and then I played Odyssey. I'm like, oh dear, this is so much better playing Odyssey. It's so much easier to control.
That is the biggest problem. And I mean, because I was there at your house when we were doing it, that I couldn't even get a wall kick off. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I'm trying to do it without thinking about it. And every time I'm just going face first into the wall. And it's like, what? Well, is the timing a little bit more forgiving? That's part of it, but it's also just different and better, tighter mechanically. So that's a nice addition. It's one of the better games of all time. To have it on the Switch is a phenomenal upgrade. We have to talk about the elephant in the room, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's only available for 6 months. Because Nintendo is weird. Almost unceasingly, unfaultingly weird. And as a result, they're like, yeah, it's just available till March, and then that's it. It's gone.
Other than them trying to like pump up the demand, I don't really know why. Like,
that's the only thing I could think it would be, was artificially create demand.
I don't know, like economics, but like, wouldn't it be better sales wise, long term, to just keep it going?
They've done this in the past. The original Four Swords game was a limited time thing, and it never appeared. They put it out once for a Zelda anniversary, briefly, for like a 3-month window. That's the only other time it's been available in the last 15 years.
I feel like Nintendo has always been kind of a club type of thing, almost, where it's like, we've got our, like, Xbox and PlayStation, it's almost like, okay, we're very similar in what we have, and we have this group of gamers. But Nintendo's has gone, like, we do what we do, and that's it. So we have this cool club that you can be a part of, and you better be in when we say it's time to get in, otherwise you missed out. That type of feeling almost. Yeah. And they can really restrict that now with the digital access to it, because Four Swords, you could probably go find it somewhere else or play it somewhere else if it was a hard disc. But now it's digital. But
well, and I wonder, maybe, so it could be that Four Swords, it's weird because this kind of defies this theory that I have, but if they're planning on doing another collection or releasing the game separately on a store, then being like, oh yeah, it's only available for a limited time, you better spend your money now and get it. And then in a year from now, they're all going to be available in the digital shop or something, a part of another collection or what have you. Then I guess it makes sense. It's not very consumer friendly, but I guess it makes sense for their bank account.
The confusing part to me is the digital one. If they wanted to limited run the retail and have that be a 6-month type of thing, make it for like collectible. There's some stickers that are coming out with it. Like, okay. I don't know if I agree with that either, but I'm like, sure, fine. Especially as more people shift to digital, and the Switch is leading the way with that because people want everything to be so portable. I could understand having just a limited run of the print of the retail version, but the digital one just makes 0 sense to me. And there's other examples of this too, like Master Quest from Ocarina of Time. That was available as a pre-order for Wind Waker. If you didn't get it from that, I mean, you could probably find it used in a GameStop or something, but other than that, that's never been re-released on anything. Maybe on the Wii Virtual Console, I'm not positive. But, there's just full-on games that they have that they've just been like, you can have it now, or I guess never again. And to that point, I mentioned Virtual Console. We've talked about it in the past, but it's like, why does Nintendo just keep holding their fans at arm's length? Is it to create... It's not even like about supply at that point. I mean, I think, Shaun, you're right. I think part of this is drum up interest by making it seem limited. But then you look at games that haven't been re-released on their Virtual Consoles throughout the years, and you're like, you can't drum up demand if you never release it again. It's like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Well, not even having a virtual... I really wonder... They seem so put together externally, but then you see things like they've stopped their Virtual Console, but now it's like a subscription thing where they're like releasing games for free with like a membership, but it hasn't... I mean, it's like a handful of games right now. Yeah. It's not like they've unlocked their entire library that you can go play for free if you have this membership. So it's like, what are they doing?
I wish they did.
I know.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I would love to play Chrono Trigger again. I haven't played it in a few years now. If that came out on the Switch, I would go through it again. It's not. It's not part of the Super Nintendo thing that if you have the Nintendo Online, you can play on, and there's no virtual console. But I would pay $10, $15 for Chrono Trigger again and go through it. But I can't because they don't want to take my money. And it's not like that would cost them anything. They would have to do a minimal amount of work to port to the new system, but it's an existing game. And it's a port. So there's no changes to it. So, like, what are we doing?
They already have the hardware, the interface in which to interface your Super Nintendo. Like, they already have that platform for it.
And it's clear that they have the games set up where you can now have those new additions like save states, because the Super Nintendo thing that they have already has that stuff, so they don't have to build that in.
Yep, easy enough.
But then it pushes people away, and then they resort to the only way that they can play the game. Willing customers who would have paid with no other option, they're just emulating it. So now, even if you do release it at some point, you're going to have a lot of gamers be like, oh, well, I already have it for free now, so forget it.
Yep.
And Chrono Trigger has a shitty mobile port and a mediocre PlayStation 1. So I can even go legally to other places and buy it if I want to, or I pirate it. Either way, Nintendo's messing out, and it's like, I don't understand it. I don't.
And I don't know if this one in particularly is Nintendo's fault or Square's fault, and there might be some like weird licensing thing because they like had a falling out at one point. I don't know, but like the point is, it's bad, and someone's to blame. Someone hates money in one of these two companies. And Nintendo, even if this is more Square, Nintendo has had a fair share of screwing things up, as we've just documented. So, yeah, I don't get it.
I have one last video game thing. Sorry, very quickly. Have either of you ever beaten Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link?
Yeah.
No, but I have it on my virtual console.
Yeah, so I did over the weekend. You can beat it really quickly if you use the special one and go through it and use save states. I don't know how anyone ever beat that game ever before save states, because I
feel that way about a lot of those old games.
Yeah, because I did it really quickly because I had save states. I'm like, oh shit, I fell in the lava. All right, right back. All right, let's try this again. Like, I beat that probably in about 4 or 5 hours because I could just go back and when I screwed up, go back. I just wanted to see the ending. Good Lord, I'd never beat that game without save states ever.
Well,
yeah.
What I'm realizing is like, see, I don't relate though because I never had this kind of patience even as a kid. But the idea was you release a game, and you can't really make them that long, as we've seen. Like if you go through with save states, you beat it in like Castlevania. I think I beat it in 3 hours. With save states. If you don't have that, like that's how they did game length. The idea was like you're gonna fail. And like tomorrow, your next run, that's going to be, and then the next one, and then the next one, until finally 3 months from now, you have all the muscle memory you need to beat it. And I've always hated that. I feel so defeated, especially if I get close to the end and then I die. I don't feel like, oh, I was almost there. I feel like I never want to do this again.
Yeah. How did you beat this, Chris?
Well, I use save states too.
Okay, good. Okay. I thought you were saying you beat it as a kid on the original Nintendo. I was
No,
like, what?
I did beat the original Metroid as a kid. I was probably 11, 10, which I think is a decent accomplishment. It's not as hard as some other stuff back then, like Contra, Zelda 2, some other things. But yeah, I think I did play it back then, and it kicked my ass. And having played Link to the Past before it, and also having played Zelda 1, I'm like, I don't like this. Like, I want these top-down Zeldas. I don't want this. I came back to it, years later, and still I liked it. I still, wouldn't put it anywhere near my like top 10 Zelda games, but I did end up going back and beating it. It was hard as hell. I did save state. I didn't have to use it a ton, but there were definitely a couple spots where I was just kind of save scumming my way through.
Yeah.
Do you know a lot of times a Japanese game would be released in Japan, be ported over to the U.S., and they would up the difficulty because our rental stores were so prevalent that they didn't want people renting it and beating it in a weekend. So the only way to artificially sort of increase playtime is just make it hard as balls. So you have to buy it and play it over and over and over again. So they were fighting rentals. And now look, Blockbuster's like dead. So
yeah.
Now nobody rents anything.
And conversely, think about trying to beat Persona 5 in a rental.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, that's...
Like, hell, how many weekends would that take you? Like, 8? Even if you could play a decent amount of multiple weekend days, it's a 100-hour game. Like, you're going to have to keep going back to Blockbuster, sheepishly looking the stupid guy at the desk in the eye, being like, it's me again.
Thank God, though, it's on your memory card, which has been a thing for years. But I only bring that up because back in the day, you return it. I used to go and be like, hey, I want to return this, but immediately rent it again. I'm not actually going to hold it the whole time, and you're going to do it on your cash register. Because people would delete my game. Because, of course, they would, because they're renting it. But
it's funny. I've been somehow, for some reason, like listening to a couple of our old episodes, and I just heard one episode where you told that exact story, Shaun.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that.
Good. I'm consistent.
So
that means it's true. I'm not lying over here.
You didn't make that one up. Yeah, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember your lies. That's all.
Exactly.
We have 3 topics this week to go with 3 Mario games and 3 video games that Dave is playing. And celebrities dying in threes, I don't know. And that is Steve Nash. Now, we've talked a lot about Steve Nash on this podcast. I kind of wonder how many times his name has been mentioned in the show. I would imagine out of 450 episodes, he's in at least 100 of them. Because anytime we talk about the Suns, and everybody's like, I miss Steve Nash. He was rather unexpectedly, just, a day after the show dropped last week, announced as the new head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, despite not really having any coaching experience at any level. He has done a little bit of work with the Warriors over the last few years as a consultant. He worked directly with Kevin Durant, which is definitely a huge factor in why this happened. But in this particular political climate that we're sitting in right now, then the question that became a prevalent one after that was, why is a white man with no head coaching experience getting a job when so many black coaches cannot? So I guess the question is, do you buy into that, or is this a good hire by the Nets?
It was surprising, for sure. I was out of left field, but when you kind of break it down, it totally makes sense. I heard Charles Barkley talking about this exact same thing, and he said somebody like Derek Fisher got a job right away, no head coaching experience. Earl Watson, pretty much no head coaching experience, got a job right away. They aren't white, they got a job right away. I don't think I don't think you can break it down that simply. I think there's so many factors in here. You can't just say, well, white privilege.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Chris, is there a way to answer no on both questions that you asked? Yeah, it's hard because I do want to be aware and sensitive, and as a white guy saying everyone's jumping to conclusions about white privilege, I'm not the best person to talk about that, and I understand that. It just does. It's unfortunate that there are a lot of black coaches who don't have a job right now. They're not being hired. But for Steve Nash, everybody's like, well, what has he done to get a head coaching job? And I'm kind of like, well, he's one of the best point guards ever. He won 2 MVPs. He was like basically a player coach when he played for our team. He was on a team that he spearheaded to revitalize the NBA. I think he's done a lot. I think, when Chris Paul quits, if he wants a head coaching job, he's going to get a head coaching job anywhere he wants.
Yep. Yeah, almost immediately.
Yeah. And so I want to be sensitive. I really do. But it's not adding up for me that he only got it because he's white. I don't know. I think he's going to be a good head coach. I think it makes sense. Whether or not he's going to be a good head coach, I think he's up in the air. But I've been saying for years, I would love if the Suns took a flyer on Steve Nash for a head coach. Just to see. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me.
It is hard, which is why I kind of wanted to point at somebody like Charles Barkley, whom I respect greatly. I really respect his opinions. And his opinion, like I said, was there are other examples of coaches getting jobs right away. He also mentioned, and I agreed with him, that we do need more black coaches in sports. Especially with the experience of, the percentages of black versus white players in the NBA. The experience of the former players becoming coaches makes sense that there would be a higher percentage that way. So I agree with him in that sense too. But I just don't feel in this particular situation, this is the best time to really call this out, because I think it demeans cases when it does happen.
Yeah.
What's the primary problem with this to me? It's a simple question that I couldn't find anybody who supported the idea that this was racist having any kind of valid opinion on, and it's this. Who made the decision to hire Steve Nash?
Shaun Marks.
Possibly. I think he was definitely a big voice in the room because he has a history with Nash. They played together back in the mid-2000s. That's a big factor. But let's be honest. You can tell this from the DeAndre Jordan signing. There are 2 people running that organization right now. They're both black. And that's Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. There's no way Steve Nash gets hired there unless they have the sign-off from their 2 stars. One of them a mercurial point guard who should benefit from somebody like Nash in their corner, and one of them who, as I mentioned, worked with Nash on the Warriors and seemed to have a better connection with Nash than he ever did with Steve Kerr. And Steve Kerr is another one of those examples of a guy who went straight to coaching, and it's worked out pretty well for him. But then again, we also have guys like Magic Johnson who it didn't translate for. So, like, I don't know. I think he'll do a pretty good job. I think if you're going to look at players from the last 20 years, I don't know who you could pick who would be more tailor-made for this than him. Chris Paul is also way up there on the list. It's a similar basketball mind, a similar point general. But, like, between his basketball acumen and his ability to work with people in the locker room, whether or not it works doesn't matter. I think it's the right decision.
Well, and that's a good point. I don't know what the percentage breakdown is, but player relations plays a huge role in an ability for a head coach to succeed in the NBA. It's not all X's and O's like it might be in high school. And even then, I don't think it's purely just what you put on a paper. You got to get buy-in from your team. They have to believe in you. You have to instill some kind of confidence and all of that. Trust. That's important. I mean, we witnessed it firsthand. Igor is a great X's and O's guy. Actually, we've seen it, unfortunately, both ways. Errol Watson is a great emotion guy. You have to have a blend. We know Steve Nash is going to be able to relate to the players. Well, now we're going to see, is he good on the X's and O's, too?
Well, I don't know. And it's just the talent gap in the NBA is so minuscule. There's just not that much of a gap. There are definitely players that stand out amongst others. But really, when it comes down to it, your coaching method, I don't know. Like you said, your X's and O's might not matter that much. Relating to your players, getting the most out of them, putting in good positions to succeed seems like the way you're going to be most successful as a coach.
I mean, don't do stupid stuff like playing Giannis 33 minutes in the playoffs, and you'll be fine. You'll succeed as a head coach.
That was sad. I don't actually take it back. It wasn't sad at all. I was very glad to see the Bucks lose this series.
Yeah, so I don't know. I think in this case, Jerry Colangelo had a good comment of like, is Steve Nash getting hired by the Nets responsible for the what do you call it? The imbalance that we see right now? Like, no, it's there already. What I would say to him is, okay, yes, but it needs to start somewhere. But I think the point still stands. Like, this is one hiring. It is a problem. The NBA hopefully will get better about it. But this isn't make or break Steve Nash getting hired.
And you can feel a little bit for Jacques Vaughn in this spot, but he's going to be the highest paid assistant coach in the league. And again, let's be honest, if Kyrie and KD wanted him to be the head coach, he would be. So he gets to be positioned in a pretty good spot here, I think. As again, the highest paid assistant in the league. If it doesn't work, Nash is going to get blamed for it, along with Kyrie and KD and everybody else. But I don't really think that Vaughn will, so his coaching path should still be relatively clear down the road. But to your point, I think you're right, Shaun. It's tough because in individual cases, you go, well, this is the right hire. But if every individual case is the black person is the wrong hire, then you have a systemic problem. So yeah. I don't know.
And maybe I'm being biased, but it seems like to me the NBA is the one you can generally give the benefit of the doubt to when it comes to this type of stuff. I don't
earned.
Yeah, exactly. I think that for the most part, if there was a systemic problem in there, the players wouldn't stand for it. They've shown that they won't.
Yeah, and in a small way, Steve Nash has already earned it by not going out and like blasting Kyrie Irving at any point. Like I was thinking about, I saw the article and I was like, it's a good thing Steve Nash never went and was like, man, Kyrie Irving is an idiot thinking the Earth is flat. Like I couldn't coach the Nets. If they wanted to hire me and then they pulled up the show, they'd be like, ooh, we're going to have to take that back.
Yeah, sorry. Kyrie hates you.
We've gone
Kyrie wants to throw you off the edge of the earth, Shaun.
We're going in another direction. The earth is actually flat. Sorry about that.
Yeah, the Nets organization believes the earth is flat.
Yeah, and that's it. So we talked about the background. We'll see if he can actually succeed. I don't know. Personally, I think they could be really good. I think they will probably not be so good because I think Kyrie's temperament is too volatile and Durant is too sensitive. I don't think it's going to work. But, best of luck to them. I have more of a rooting interest now than I did before.
I got to say, between one of my favorite players of all time being hired as a head coach and the absolute guts they played with trying to, indirectly help the Suns get in the playoffs this past year. The Nets have, they're kind of my secondary team right now, I think.
In a way, yeah, I agree. But I also I don't know. I know they're in a way they're almost playing better with Kyrie not playing.
Yeah.
Because all he wants to do is throw everybody under the bus, and you saw how that destroyed their confidence and how they rallied together when he was hurt.
Yep. Well, that's Nash's job to figure that out.
But he has some of the best skills of all time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard.
The expectation is going to be probably 60 wins next year.
Yeah.
And that's going to be awful tough with how many good teams there are in the NBA. If there even is an 82-game season, that, of course, throws the whole thing into question, whatever. But we don't even know what this team looks like. Are they bringing back Joe Harris? That's kind of a core component for them, regardless of whether KD and Kyrie are coming back. We haven't seen Durant in a Brooklyn uniform. We have seen a bit of Kyrie. It was,
I think 60 is high for expectations. But I think we're mincing words here. I think finals trip is the expectation. I think if you have that Nets team and they stay healthy the whole year and they don't make it to the finals, they don't have to necessarily win. I think if they don't make it, it'll be seen as a disappointment.
I don't disagree with you, by the way. And obviously this season was cut a little bit short. The last 10 games were kind of questionable, but nobody won 60 games this year.
Yeah.
The Bucks were on pace, and a couple of teams had a shot, but 60 is hard to do.
And the only reason I even bring that up is because I am sure they're going to load manage both players.
They kind of
both
have to.
coming
Especially
off
KD.
injuries,
Especially Durant, who's had more than enough time to recover by this point, but is too big of an investment to risk a dumb injury in February.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree there. So it's really hard to say how well will Nash do. Well, I don't know. What the hell type of offense is he going to install? Who's on the roster?
Is this a thing of, well, I was really good at doing this, but I can't tell people how I did it because I just did it instinctually.
Yeah.
The greatest people who at his talent aren't always the best teachers because it was just well, I don't know. I did it. Why can't you?
Yeah. For every Doc Rivers who came in with almost no experience, there's also a Mark Jackson. So and Mark Jackson wasn't even a failure necessarily, but you'll notice he hasn't gotten another chance since then, so it makes you wonder.
Weird. And then as soon as the other person took over for him, they won the finals and was one of the greatest teams of all time with essentially the same roster.
Yeah, you can argue that Mark Jackson did a lot of the work to make their defense as good as it was, but Steve Kerr unlocked that offense to become the juggernaut it did.
Yep.
So, all right, that's the end of this episode. A multitude of topics, but all kind of related in that we all love them, and if you don't, fuck you.
And Steve Nash won MVP 3 times, so we kept the 3
in a row
going. Yeah, MV3.
Mm-hmm. That happened.
Did it?
And he won 3 finals, as we all know.
Yes.
In a row.
Yes, single-handedly. It was 1-on-5, but he was so good.
How would you feel if his first championship is with the Nets?
I don't care. I'm happy for him.
Okay. Me too.
Well,
I would be a little bit disappointed, but still happy for him.
Look, the only way I would not have been happy was if it was with the Lakers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
right.
would have stung.
Yeah.
Even then, I would have been happy for him,
Yeah.
but still devastated by the result. This one, I can at least get behind. Even if I'm not the biggest Kyrie fan, I can be like, yeah, cool. It's nice that he'll be vindicated and revealed as one of the smartest basketball minds of all time, if he's not already. Cool.
It's nice to see attention returning to New York in basketball, though, again. I'm sure
Not the
most of
Knicks.
Knicks fans wanted it.
Yeah. And you know what, too? This is a dumb little thing, and it won't matter because he's already in the Basketball Hall of Fame, and he was always going to be. But, winning a title as a coach would kind of erase some of the he didn't win a ring as a player thing, even though it really shouldn't.
Yeah, like you said, he's in the Hall of Fame already. People can have that argument, but I don't know. So many good players didn't win a ring. So many.
You actually, you bring up a good point, and this is one of the most prolific coaches, if not the most of all time. But do you remember Phil Jackson for winning a championship as a player or a coach?
Yeah.
So it holds weight. It matters.
How many titles does Steve Kerr have? Pop quiz.
8.
How many rings?
Yeah. How many titles?
8.
6.
8 is right.
Fuck.
Because 3 with the Warriors and 5 as a player. Which of those carry more weight? I don't know. Obviously, The Last Dance, he was an integral part of the Bulls, etc. But it all adds up. When you look back at Steve Kerr's career in basketball, they all count. So hell, if he gets a title this way, awesome.
Yep.
Good on him. Yeah.
All right, that's the end of this episode. In between shows, you can find us at our website, objectionnetwork.com, or on youtube.com/objectionnetwork, where if you're a regular viewer of this channel, I apologize for no videos this week, but it's been a hell of a time. We'll see you next time.